Hello, dear listener. I have something truly special to share. It's an exclusive invitation to join me in Mexico for an intimate and luxurious 3-day retreat along the beautiful Pacific coast of Zihuatanejo, taking place the weekend of the spring equinox, March 18th through the 20th. There's also an optional day to stay through the 21st for some special ceremonies that are happening in the area for the equinox. But the retreat itself is the 18th through the 20th, really an opportunity not to be missed. And I'm offering one lucky listener a discounted ticket on this weekend that I've just been loving into being actually for several years now as COVID and, everything. But when we conceived of building this place, our home down here, it's really what we envisioned, bringing people down here for retreats, for trainings, because we felt and we knew that this space was special. And as people keep coming down and we keep getting the feedback, how magical it is, we want to share it in a really intentional way. Be working with the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, water, the metaphors of the season. We'll set sight on a new vision for our mothering journey and creating a deeper connection to self and Mother Nature. So to win a discounted ticket, rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts. Screenshot it and DM it to me on Instagram at Dr. Gertrude Lyons. And remember, the most important thing to mother is yourself. Give yourself permission to take a retreat this year. And besides, who said mothers can't go on a spring break? I'll see you there.
This is a Soulfire production. Welcome to Mother. No, it's Mother. Welcome to Mother, the show where we can explore our inner mothers to actualize our greatest selves. Through interviews with incredible guests, live coaching sessions, and my own experiences, we're going to dive deep into embracing feminine values and reparenting ourselves. So be prepared to show up, hold space, and be mothered in a way you never have before, but have always needed. It's time we rewrite the Mother Code. Hi, and welcome to episode 42 of Mother, season 2 of Rewrite the Mother Code podcast. This episode is about, I'm going to speak from a solo weekend I did, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. So I'm a mothering revolutionary. I like to consider myself that as I bust open and look to break down paradigms that aren't working for all of us in general, but us as mothers, and to really have the experience, the journey, the potential for our growth and development in our mothering, right? So a key component of that is that the most important person I need to mother is myself. This isn't the first time I'll be saying this, but even I struggle to mother myself and make time for me. So much so that I haven't gone on a solo trip, taken a whole weekend ever to myself. I've been a mother for 25 years. And in some ways, I haven't walked my walk, but that's changing through this trip. It's been changing over time, always. We're on a journey, right? So why didn't I? What was going on? I'm hoping you can relate to some of the reasons, excuses, barriers that I put up to do something like take a whole weekend, just me. I've done weekends like training weekends, things away from my children and husband, like work weekends, work weeks even. But one where I'm like, nope, this is just me packing up and heading out. So what's up with that? So when I look at that, a bunch of things come up. The first one is, what would people think? Like, that must look really selfish. Like, why wouldn't you be with your husband and kids? Especially when they were younger and littler. Like, that was just, you're a busy working woman and you're going to take a whole weekend to yourself. So there was that aspect. And then without even just the assumption, let alone literal reactions, but for sure, my husband and kids are going to be mad at me. They're not going to like it. And, they're going to complain. They're going to call me selfish. So we'll just avoid that by not doing it. I also, I have, based on my upbringing and choices I made in my family, I have a fairly dependent personality. So then there's the fact of like, can I do something? Can I even do something like this on my own, without being with my husband or someone else or a friend that, if I don't know how to do something or I'm scared or something like that, there's someone right there, right? I don't have to just handle everything by myself. And then I think probably the biggest one is fear of the unknown. Fear in general, which we'll talk about, like just fear of a woman on her own, but then fear of the unknown and just all that time to be. I didn't have a work purpose. I really wanted to kind of set work aside. I didn't fill it with sessions and other ways that, yes, I might physically be away, but I'm still doing everything I would do if I were at home. So I really had to set it up that way. And fear that came with that was going to be up to me to generate everything. And what would that be? And really, I think the be is the big part, right? It was going to be fine if I wanted to do some things, but the being with myself for all that time, I think was a key fear factor. So I've really been working on this year, following my yearnings, allowing my wants, my yearnings, because something that goes along with that dependent personality is, you kind of give yourself a pass and don't really openly declare or generate, through my own yearnings so much. So, that was going to be a big focus and something that I've been focusing on in smaller ways through the year, kind of building up to this, right? I've taken half days or a few hours here and there and have just found that I felt so nourished by it, that all of the fears that I had and that, it was going to be worth facing them and it was going to be worth dealing with any pushback that I got. And there was a little of that, but not, significant, and certainly not as significant as I thought there would be as far as pushback from my husband and my daughter. So off I went on this journey. And I want to focus on and share a few lessons, a few themes that emerged for me throughout the weekend that I allowed to kind of come forth. I'm sure there were many more, but ones that, really had particular significance or meaning for me. Like I said, the first was just, what do you do when you have so many voices in your head telling you that it's not okay to follow your yearning, right? So that I would say was the first one. Once I got past that, then, continuing to follow my yearning. So I'm, when you're off, I'm on the trip, I'm in the car, I'm there, how do I keep following my yearnings? And some of them were easy because they were kind of like right there in the moment. And, I could kind of just easily kind of pick up and do it. I had a friend support me in, making a list of a bunch of yearnings I had or wants that I had. So if I ever got stuck, not knowing what to do, or, I could refer to my list. And that actually was a really fun idea. If you ever do something like this, I strongly suggest that. But one of the other kind of negative voices that came up, I'm going to call it efficiency versus my yearnings, right? So when something was going to be more challenging or take more time, how I would think like, oh, well, how many times have you stopped yourself from doing something because it was going to be a little bit more effort or a little bit harder when I could do something easier? For example, I'm in the Shawnee National Forest in Southern Illinois, really beautiful, but very large place, like expansive. And one of the places that really drew me to go there was an area in the park called the Garden of the Gods. Like, of course, I'm going on this journey. I'd like to infuse it with some spirit. Of course, I have to go there. But it turns out that that place is over an hour from my Airbnb. And there are other parts of the national forest that look beautiful that are much closer, 15 minutes away, 20 minutes away, and certainly plenty I could explore closer to home. So this whole closer to home, easier one really came up for me. And I kept hearing these kind of negative voices like, really, do you want to take that much time? But I kept turning it back around and quieting those voices with my yearnings, with the well, isn't this what drew you here? And then also to think about the drive and how I could use that drive well and explore and just, be with myself again, because that was going to be kind of more time with myself. So I did. And I was so happy I did. It was just an incredibly beautiful place and a place that I felt moved by. And at one point, just to kind of really get into my own space, I put a headset on with some just, beautiful music and allowed myself to be and explore and journal and take time in some places and keep moving in others. And I came upon, just an outcropping of rocks. And I walked up and into that area and just burst into tears. I don't know why, and I just kind of let things like that, let the tears come and allowed myself to flow. And I don't think I've ever done something like that before by myself. I mean, if you know me, or maybe I've spoken up before, but I go on pilgrimages every year and, we go to sacred places. I've learned how to kind of be in a place, but it's always, with my husband and with other people that I know, and also other people, like the leaders, Dr. Judith Wright, kind of providing experiences, taking us places. So that was another thing that I didn't mention around this. Like, could I, create those spaces myself, all by myself? And I did. And that was very empowering to me to do that. Also looking at just how, I wanted to live into and do something different. Tons of research on how important novelty is in our lives, and just this whole trip. And then within the trip, doing things, not everything that I was used to doing or comfortable with is novelty. And that, helps keep our brain active. It's really good for us neurologically and physically. So, bringing as much novelty into it as I could was something really important. Hi, I'm so excited to share with you my 2024 Spring Equinox Self-Mothering Retreat that's happening this March 2024. And I would love for you not only to consider it, but to attend. But in considering it, hey, just knowing that you would be leaving cold weather, if that's the space that you're in, and coming down to just magnificently beautiful, warm, nourishing place of Zihuatanejo, Mexico. Zihuatanejo meaning land of the goddess women, and coming to really take time for yourself. Okay. And that I am learning more and more isn't just a nice thing to do or something extravagant or something selfish. It's essential. And I really want you to take it seriously, to consider, just think about what would it take for me to go. It's a 5.5-day retreat. Getting from where you are, getting there, landing there, and then being in a space that is all about you. It's all about nourishing you. It's all about tuning into you, using everything around us, the nature, the food, the beautiful people, the rituals, ceremonies. I bring it, we really bring it. And we go deeper and deeper as the days go on, and we release, we let go, we bring in what is nourishing, what is empowering, what is that space of just really divine feminine energy. And we do it in the community of women. It's not for everyone. I will be honest, if the idea of leaving and not making it work, or it's just too hard, not for you. If the idea of, spending that amount of time inwardly focused and going to that level of self-awareness doesn't sound like something you're willing to do or put the time and energy into, then it's not for you. And it's good to know that, right? So this is for people who are serious about what it means to mother themselves, what it means to take time for ourselves, and that gift and what that gift can bring to us. It was originally right after my fall retreat. It filled right up. But now some people, it turns out, are not able to come. So I do have a handful of openings. And if you're listening to this and you're willing to take that step, please reach out to me. We can do a discovery call, or you can put a deposit down. I would love that. And you can do that by going to my website, www.drgertrudelyons, DrGertrudelyons.com. Go to events, and there you go. It'll all be there. There's a beautiful page there for you to explore. I look forward to hearing from you and then seeing you on my spring retreat. A second theme that came up for me is that magic can happen despite challenging circumstances. So somewhat similar to the last one, but the drives, sure, like some of those things were challenging circumstances, but there were also, other aspects of discomfort, right? Like some of it was just the general safety, right? I'd get to a park, and the one I went to Sunday morning, on the one hand, it was lovely. There are no other people there, but it was also uncomfortable because what if something happens? And I took a lot of precautions and had numbers in my phone and little first aid. And I wasn't going on big, long hikes, but just, so I had taken some steps, people knew where I was, all those kinds of things, but it was uncomfortable to be, to walk in on this one hike hike up to this, well, what ended up being more like a cave, because at this time of year, the waterfall isn't running. I'm all by myself, and to be in this vastness and space and not let my thoughts or fears, overcome me, and really allow myself to kind of stop and listen and be in that space, to let the magic happen, right? I'd say the bigger example of that was, again, we're talking efficiency versus yearnings to start with, because the Airbnb owner had recommended going to this orchard. That's an orchard, but it also has these big flower fields of zinnias. And she's like, literally her words were, it's magical. So I'm like, well, I have to go to the magical place, of course, but it wasn't on the way, right? So by now I'm packing up, I'm getting ready to go Sunday, and I really want to go to this place, but it's not on the way. It's going to take me, probably some total an hour out of my way. And another thing I do to kind of help me overcome my fears in something like this, or negative stinking thinking, is my own like muscle testing. So if you're familiar with that, muscle testing kinesiology, it's a way you can like yes, no, kind of ask yourself questions. And every time I would ask, should I go to the flower field? Like it would always respond yes. I would respond yes. So I'm like, okay. So I do it, and I make the trek, and it felt like I was going in the reverse direction. Like it's just so interesting to like be with your thoughts so much. But it was a beautiful drive. I get there and I get out of the car, and it feels like a sauna, right? It was like one of the hottest days of the summer. I wasn't the only one that had the idea to come to the zinnia fields, and it was probably the most crowded place I was. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so hot. Okay, that's fine. I make my way over to the fields and I see them in the distance. I'm like, oh yes, like this is so worth it. They're so beautiful. And as I get closer, like it just felt like it was getting hotter and hotter, and my dress is sticking to me. And I'm like, all right, this is, uncomfortable in the heat, but that's okay. And then, of course, what comes with flower fields, but bees. And I see all the bees. I'm like, well, I'm sure they're busy getting doing their thing. They won't bother me. And then all of a sudden I feel this like sting on my hip. Well, I don't know. It wasn't so sudden that I felt it, but it felt something kind of stinging and burning. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what is that? And I look, I don't see anything. I literally like pull up my dress, like, what is going on here? I don't see anything. I'm like, all right, I don't know what that was. But it turns out later I've discovered it definitely was a bee sting, but it was super uncomfortable. So still dripping sweat, but I really had to work it, right? Like the big lesson I got here was that, when you go on a quest, which I considered this whole journey, but this was a particular quest within the journey to this magical place, there's going to be challenges. And it's up to me within challenges to find the beauty, to orient, toward my intention, toward my purpose in being there, and have that right alongside the discomfort, right alongside the bee sting and my dress sticking to me and literally like feeling sweat dripping off my body, that I don't have to like run to the car and run out of there. I could still be in the presence of this space, and that's a huge lesson for me in my life that I've learned and watched my husband really live into, that he does a lot of things that are super uncomfortable, particularly physically, and just assumes that that's part of it. I learned this lesson somewhat also when I first scuba dived, I really had to overcome a huge fear to do that. And I thought I was just supposed to get it and have it be, 100% blissful with no discomfort. Well, that's just not the case. He's like, well, of course it was uncomfortable, but you don't let that rule the day. So not letting those things rule was a really important lesson for me. And then it was so sweet. I took some pictures, and you can, it's kind of like an orchard, right? You can cut flowers, and just really oriented toward that. And then sent a picture to my family, and the response I got back from my husband, well, beautiful, and the flowers are pretty too. And it was just a really sweet sentiment. I'm like, oh, but if I were so in my discomfort, I'd just be like, yeah, whatever. And I would ignore that or miss it. So lastly, something, that was a discovery, not that I didn't think this to some degree, but I think really affirmed for me and underlined that I enjoy my own company. I've worked hard to actually learn to like be okay to be with myself. And this was just a bigger test run of that. Doesn't mean I love my husband or my children or my friends less. If anything, it made me love them more. I don't know how that works, but it did. But that it's okay, like, to crave alone time. And it's okay to tell that truth that I yearn for and love to be with myself, in addition to those around me. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the dependence and things like that, to see and live into how competent I am, how resourceful I am. And I think I'm good at finding good, meaningful stuff to do. I use what's around me well and really want to kind of like explore the area to really get the richness out of a place. And, everything from my Airbnb to the places we went, like I want to like really be in them and allowing myself that space to really, break some mistaken beliefs I've had about those areas and feel very empowered coming back to bring that into my life and lead in a way that feels very different out of doing it. And I think I said that was the last, but we just want to mention another one, that I chose. I guess this is part of enjoying my own company, allowing myself to be in big questions. Even like the Netflix that I chose to watch or listen, I watched one on the Big Bang Theory and, Call the Midwife. And, I didn't, even though I was okay to just kind of do nothing at times and it didn't have to all be super meaningful, I wanted everything I did to be nourishing. And I also highly recommend the book that is both very disturbing, but I also think really important for our time right now, of The Story of Bee by Daniel Quinn. And that's what I listen to in my car rides, and allowing myself to be in big questions and purpose and intention and meaning. And, what do I want to be and have different in my life? And how can I contribute to the greater good and be more of a leaver than a taker, as he says it, but, more of a giver than just a taker. And some really beautiful lessons that I, filled the drive and kind of filled that time with. So there's so much more. There are a lot of little things in there, big things, but I think I've outlined kind of the gist of it and some of the bigger lessons for me. And what I would hope and want, out of listening to this is, married, single, with kids, without kids, there's something very different about taking yourself away from your normal world, your friends, your loved ones, your work specifically, and pull away, step out of your norm, step out of the usual, whether you want to consider it like I did, kind of a little mini pilgrimage, so to speak, with myself, or, just a novel weekend, something where that things you're going to do are going to be nourishing for you. The whole intention to come back, refreshed, renewed. I vacated in a way that brought me more to myself. And I can't emphasize enough, in this realm and sharing and speaking about mothering ourselves, that this is a way to do that, and one that I so strongly encourage and, hope you can take advantage of in some way or another. You can camp out. There's tons of ways to do this, efficiently as far as resources, but do it. And I'd love to hear your journeys, your experiences. You can DM me on Instagram or email me at gertrude@brightgrad.edu. And I'd love to hear all about your journeys and your adventures. All right. Till next time. Thank you so much for choosing yourself and taking the time to listen to this podcast. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe to subscribe to Mother. It helps other people who need this message, aka all women, well, actually everybody, men included. I'm honored to have you on this journey in mothering yourself. Remember, change is uncomfortable, but it's beautiful, and it starts with us. And if you can't wait until next week's episode, follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Dr. Gertrude Lyons, or at my website, drgertrudelyons.com. I'll see you next time.